listening to Polymatic.media. October 1st, 2017, episode 25. Welcome to the Polymaticast. Hey, John, how's it going?
Pretty okay. Having a bit of a deja vu feeling, but...
We are. Yeah, I'm having a little bit of an audio problem on my end, and it's continuing to be extra difficult when it probably doesn't need to be. So maybe it was because I had this side thought in my head that I probably should upgrade my actual mixing board. But see, the thing is, the problem for me today and yesterday had nothing to do with my mixing board. Had to do with my audio workstation card. So
the gremlins strike back.
Yeah,
right?
And again.
Solve one, and you get another one.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't pour water on them. That's good. That's good advice for any pieces of electronics.
Yeah. Also, don't feed them food. They might not like that either.
Yeah. So, how has your day been since I last talked to you?
Yeah, it's a bit. I wanted to edit the recording this morning, and then I found out that the audio wasn't good on your end, and
Yeah.
The recording on my end, your side had a lot of echoes from me in it, so it was not really usable. It was a bit of an issue.
I think gremlins reached through the internet and hit us both.
Yeah. Well, I think that's more of a Skype issue, but you know.
Yeah. So regardless of that, I finally saw Inhumans. That's Marvel's new thing.
Oh, okay.
It's you know what? I gotta watch more. I think that's where I'm at with it. It was supposedly a movie that they split into a two-parter, and then they're making a TV series out of it.
They released the first two episodes in IMAX, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I hadn't seen it in the theater. I saw it at home. So and I guess we got to see where it's going to go. Because I don't really know if there's any material like comics. I don't know them. So so that's the only kind of novel thing that accomplished between yesterday and today. So there you go.
I saw Blade Runner for the first time in its completion.
The original or the new one?
The original one.
Oh, okay.
And the new movie's coming out this Thursday, I think. So yeah, I got tickets for that.
I think it's definitely out in the States. I've not seen it yet.
No, it's coming out the next week. I think the 6th or the 5th or 6th.
Okay, well, I definitely want to go see it, and it's probably a good reminder for me to go watch the original, because I can't remember the last time I did that. And even then, when I was taking sort of film classes, it was always like an example of talking about homage, like when people pay homage to other films, right? You know, the scene, the Metropolis, and that shot over the building that, you know, you see that's in LA, but that's based on some other old school 1920s, 1930s films. So there's all kinds of like little film director, film editor things that are in that movie that are paying homage to other old school, classic, important, crucial films. So,
Okay, so, lots of stuff going on in the last 22 hours. We were going to talk about releasing code. We had a good discussion yesterday, so I think we can rehash that, I think. So for the .NET environment, right? When you talk about releasing your code, you can talk about either web development stuff, which is basically what you do a lot of, right?
I do like full stack stuff. So it's not just like native, but native plus back end, front end, and then lots of UI things.
Yeah, okay.
The current projects that I live in predominantly have been, back end API interfaces, and then additionally, with database things.
Yeah.
And then
But mostly server and web related, right?
Yeah, web related,
Yeah.
definitely web related, web focus as of late. But I definitely have the skills and experience of doing other things than I've have in the past. So
So for me, it's basically the same thing. I do a lot of web stuff with PHP, but also do some server backend stuff
yeah,
um, for domain registrations and stuff like that.
yeah.
So
The languages that I would cover, which I don't really call these languages, but CSS, HTML, it's not really they're not real languages. Razor, if you're talking .NET stuff, and then obviously your standard JavaScript, C Sharp. In the past, VB, there's no reason to go back there. In the past, Java, but no reason for me to go back there. And then just database things, Oracle, SQL, all that stuff. So
so for .NET, if you want to release something to production, right?
hmm
What steps would you go through? Do you automate all that, or do you have um, do you all do that manually? Do you have like a written down document where you have to follow these steps to do the release?
yeah. So without going into long consolidation, this is the consolidation, the long conversation we had yesterday. So I'll talk about like currently where I work, and how we made an improvement. They used to have a pseudo. Um, Automatic, meaning like you copied things to a place and then you hit a button and then it went through a bunch of script like things to release stuff to your destination.
Yeah.
And that could cause troubling problems where people would get real lazy or sloppy. And if we gave them the wrong access to things, they could literally go from their laptop straight to production. So certainly the history of that has been long gone for a long while. And in the more newer era, we've built and bought deployment mechanisms and instituted that inside the company as the first way of deploying everything new, and have been moving over older legacy things into the same pattern, right? And so it is a deployment system that is also has restrictions but built all around it,
Yeah.
right? So like myself, I have full access to things because of my role and in terms of leadership and and who I am in the company. But not everyone gets that. A junior developer that has no access. A mid-level developer has isolated access.
But
So
for your release steps, you would there's an automated part, and then there's a human component, right?
sure, yeah. So everything needs to be committed to our source control, whether that's Git or SVN. And then from there, once that's committed, it has to go through the build server, has to pass. And then once the build server it's good there, then it can be released by anybody who has access to the deployment mechanism. Our build server that we use in the company is called Team City. It's made by JetBrains. And it can do a lot of things. We're only utilizing a small part of its feature set. But it builds our .NET stuff. It pulls down all the NuGet package manager pieces in place if they need to be restored. And then it produces deployable packages so that the Octopus deployment system can come kick in and do some additional transformations like swapping out username and passwords that are unique for the deployment environments and stuff like that. And it does that on a configuration basis, like a project based, configuration. Yeah.
But
And then
there's a manual step that goes from development to UAT to production, right? So
yeah,
there's an actual testing phase with actual people doing the testing.
that's correct. Right. And
Yeah.
so someone like me I'm the release gate, right? Me and a few people are the release gates. So,
But you release to UAT, not to production, right?
that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I can release it all the way down the chain, but I will only release it in small steps, right?
Yeah.
And I make sure that that the team is testing and the whoever is the UAT and the customer and QA, whatever that might be, or whoever that might be, in the company are going through test case scripts and trying to break it,
Yeah.
and going through all that sort of penetration testing of the application before we say to the customer, okay, please log into our staging/UAT environment and check this thing out and let us know if you're cool and give us your feedback. And then iteratively through that process takes us into a larger life cycle, which is eventually one button to a release to production.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really the hyper consolidation of our long conversation yesterday. Now, for you, you do something very similar, but you're using different technology, right?
Yeah. Well, also, there's a big difference where we do continuous deployment. So if we make something new in the morning, we could have it released like at the end of the morning, right? That's because we build unit tests for everything we have, and then from those unit tests, we can say, hey, we're pretty sure we're done. And but then the amount of testing needs to go into it, manual testing, is reduced because you don't have to cover those things because you know that you have 100% coverage on that code. And that means that you can be reasonably sure that your stuff is ready for deployment. Now, we develop in PHP, and there's a number of ways you can release a piece of code with PHP. The main way we release is using Ansible. We run a build, and if the build is green, we just run the Ansible script, and we'll release it to either our UAT or production. Now, our team is not that big, so for us, we have just a couple of developers that can also release. So we only release as soon as we have a green build, and we have a couple of pieces of software. So some of it gets put on the server as code. So PHP is a runtime thing. So while the web server will call the PHP code, and it will be interpreted and then do stuff. So there's not an actual build process as it makes a binary or something. It just, releases it as code. For other pieces of software we make a FAR file, which is basically like for Java, you have jar files. It's an archive, contains all the files you need, all the components. It's still executed the same way as normal PHP, but it's like a virtual amount of the data inside. It's an archive with just all the files in it. And that with that, we can make sure that we release fast. We have everything automated, so we don't have to stop cron jobs and stop this process. It will all do that automatically for us. Mm-hmm. It saves us a lot of time, a lot of headaches. And we've been there in the past. So when we started this part of the company, we automated all that because we've been through the headaches for so many times. So that's how we automate. Okay, so that's basically how we deploy for our web apps and our other server apps.
Our deployment system and our build server can do continuous and can include, running through like unit test stuff. It can do post-processing pieces and stuff like that. And we have it going through lots of transformations and doing lots of things, but it basically builds those checks and balances into the system to confirm and make sure it conforms to all the things. But we do involve a human component, the developers and also other people who get to look at it, check it, and kind of go through iterative tests before we allow it to be released out into production. So this is more of like what's happening today in the market, which is like DevOps things, right? Where it's like people and or solutions that live between sort of the developer stack of the business or your division and the administrative/deployment side of your division, right? And the solution, the build server that we use, like I said, can do lots of things. We use it for a very limited use case.
Yeah, you haven't used its complete potential, right?
Yeah, and we were having a good conversation yesterday, and it does beg the question, a larger point. Could we do more? And absolutely. Should we do more? Yes. But that's sort of an iterative thing. It's not just using tools, but making sure all the people who sign paychecks and leadership and all the people involved in the company um, are signed off on the change in workflow.
Yeah.
Because change in workflow requires change in time and deployment and execution and when and how they can promise new things,
Yeah,
right, to the customers or deliver.
Do you how long does it take for, let's say you make you add a new button to
Yeah.
your system, right? Yeah, new
Hmm.
page, new button on it, and it says John is awesome, and when push the button, something happens.
Yeah.
How long does it take for you, besides the fact if anybody actually wants that button, for it to go from your machine to production on average?
If we were not going through the everyone looks at it, checks it, confirms,
The
agrees on
entire
it.
thing, right?
Right. So if you're going through the whole like agreement deployment life cycle, could take a day, could
Yeah.
take hour. I mean, it's just about as fast as people get to it, and or asked to prioritize. If I was Alan wanted to put a button on there that's just a red button that people click that does nothing, it could take minutes. And actually, the build server might take about 90 seconds. So that's most of it. And the deployment between each of the stages takes seconds.
Yeah. But
So,
for an
I mean,
average thing where you actually do something, it takes a lot longer, right? Because there's lots of humans involved.
sure. And got a code for it, right? And then in my case where I work, there's lots of business logic involved in
Mm.
everything. No, when a customer asks for something, they don't just ask for the bell, they ask for the whistle. They ask for the bells and whistles to do conditional things, and then conditional things that are nested in other conditional things. And I mean, I think that's universal statement about a lot of companies and the way customers want. Um, sure, we could do lots of artful things that aren't functional, but a customer wants artful and functional things most of the time. Um, I mean, our customers are different. Ours are serving a very specific industry for a very specific set of purposes for very custom needs. And yours is a larger footprint, right? Because you have a more open consumer base, correct?
Actually, no. We
Really?
have usually do business to business. So when we release our code, we can release within a few minutes of actually writing the code because we have everything unit tested. We don't need so for example, for our server software, we have everything set up so we can just release the new code. If something breaks, we can just roll back without anybody ever knowing a server
Right.
went down because the server doesn't go down, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and again, our deployment system does the same thing. The interesting thing about Octopus Deploy is it utilizes a programmer's packet manager. Like there's like npm or RPM.
mhm.
NuGet is sort of the Microsoft .NET version of that. It's really designed to deploy and install like code resources. It can be used exactly in this fashion to deploy actual like source code to be compiled up on the web server and so forth. Um, yeah, and so the way we built some of our newer applications, we can deploy pretty smoothly without ever any, customer interruption. We can
Yeah.
release new files without them really ever knowing. Um, yeah.
Okay. Um, what else? We talked about so much yesterday.
Yeah, we did. We talked about so much stuff, and it feels so weird consolidating down to little fine
Yeah.
points. But yeah, I think, I think I guess what the point of this or the hindsight we could take away is whether you're on like the LAMP stack or whether you're on a .NET like ASP.NET framework stack, despite the platform, you have lots of deployment features and functionality available to you. The only big catch-all is yes, you could script everything. Absolutely, you could spend an eternity making a perfect script system, or you can build manageable or you could buy manageable things. Octopus Deploy, I think, has some free pieces to it. You don't technically need a build server, but of course you're going to want a build server to come from your source control workflows, right? So that you can release different versions and or roll back to whatever version you need in case there's a problem that gets introduced that wasn't caught.
Hmm.
And I would say that there are solutions. So I definitely would recommend Octopus Deploy, on at least on the .NET side. You use what, Ansible, right?
For deploying, yeah. But
Yeah.
for Ansible, you also have like a control server. It's called Ansible Tower.
Hmm.
As for building, we use Bamboo. Now, Bamboo can also deploy stuff. It's not like we actually use that for that, but our philosophy is to have the right tool for the right job. And sometimes this tool can do it, and we pay for that tool, but we're paying for that for a specific part of it.
Right. Yeah.
So when we run a build, our build contains code checks, style guide checks, linting for
Hmm.
bad code,
Yeah.
security scans for issues with packages that notorious have issues or whatever. We have unit tests for all our services, for all our important components. Right, so when we run a build, our build is just to check if everything is correct. And then when we have a green build, we can do the release. Now we can tie it all together and do the packaging for our some of our software we release in FAR file format. But mostly we use our build server just to check if everything is okay. And when we get a green light from that, we can start thinking about releasing. And we still have humans testing it, but that's also part of the team, right? So we also test our own code. We have very lean, more a multidisciplinary team. So we have people from customer service. We have people from management. We have not really marketing people because we're business to business, and
Yeah.
marketing becomes less important. But yeah, we have lots of different people, lots of different experience go over our stuff. And for server to server communication, there usually isn't, there's specifications, and that's all you need to think about. And there's no humans involved with that.
Right. Yeah.
But for web stuff, we usually have like a component of user testing. But the most important part is making sure that you can trust your code and trust your changes. And then when you have that trust, you can more easily release everything to production without having to go through days of testing manually. We've been there where we had like a team of like 4 or 5 testers doing their thing. And then we even had customer support doing testing on things. And that's not a fun experience because every comma they will come back to you. That's a bug, right?
Right.
So that's not an experience you want to be in.
Yeah, I mean, as a developer, I test along as I go. I test locally. I build everything locally. I check it. I test it. I commit my code. We run it through the build server. It goes through similar checks and tests. The optimization is typically happening on the fly by the web server. We don't do it in the files so much ahead of time, but we do some pre-compile things so that when the web server gets to it, that it doesn't have to compile on the fly. Again, it handles sort of the optimization, the linting on the fly for us. And so that happens by way of through the .NET stack and ASP.NET. All the tooling and stuff is built into that, so that what we commit is just the the normal, I don't know what you would call it, not linted files, right? And those are things that are happening through the compile, through the build process and deployment. So yeah, I think they're very similar. I think just I guess how you customize it for your needs are always going to be different.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
we're talking about whole different environments. But,
right. Yeah.
I think that the concepts are not this similar, right?
Yeah, it's funny because when I started this stuff and I was with companies and or also built deployment systems because I was on more of the administrative architecture side of the house. I would build these kinds of things, even as far back as like 2000. I told a story before that I don't need to rehash here, but we worked with I worked at a multinational company, and so as a result of that, we built, Microsoft had this fantastic high performance, routable, and, like multi-point deployment mechanism that they built. And they tried to sell it to companies. And I don't know that it really got caught, but it got integrated because it was such a great product. They integrated into a much bigger operational management system, solutions for servers. And they utilized it for those kinds of things. But the company I work for, we partnered with them and we built a web interface. And this is about as far back as, the late 90s or, year 2000. And we basically went in and built a web interface that allowed divisional and business unit managers to deploy the code, self-enable, right? And do that. And our deployment system today, hence 10 years later, where I work today, not the same company, has a very similar thing because a bunch of people came along and said, hey, there's this is a thing we've been doing a lot, and we built a product out of it, and then we started a company. And so it's funny to me, everyone's like, this is amazing. And I go, it is. It's a pretty good iteration of things I've seen in the past that all been homebrew.
Yeah.
And I think the real sticking point is a lot of companies build these things internally. That's what they do. They build these things internally. And you never see the light of day on them, right? Until somebody gets smart and builds a product for everybody that can be purchased.
Yeah. Well, I think that in both environments, so for example, we're in the environment I work in and the environment you work in, the ideas are the same, reducing the amount of time to market for your products, and making sure that and trust your code is just as important as being able to release it automatically instead of having to go and put files on a server and reconfigure things, switch things around manually. If that takes an hour for a release, as some companies still do, that is costing you customers because you're offline for that hour. If you automate all that, you can switch around within seconds or milliseconds in some cases, or not even show anything, right? So I think that the goals for all this is it's all the same. Everybody has the same goal of releasing their code without any impact.
I think no matter how perfect the situation becomes, ultimately the result of it is going to be that the systems are not perfect, right? You got to teach them how to be perfect, and even then, some of that thought is not perfect. I told yesterday a small point about we have our source controlled system, and somehow someone clobbered one of my files, and I was able to go through the logging and look at the change and see that my 10 lines went missing, which caused someone in unit testing to break something, and then I fixed it. And this was before we ever got to production. But that wasn't the point. That even though the solutions are there to kind of protect you and programmers from making mistakes, they often are not perfect. Even if you choose the latest and greatest workflow, whatever, it's not necessarily going to protect you from people taking lazy or overriding, making a human mistake out of it. Right. Yeah.
Well, the amount of permissions you can control with SVN versus Git, there's a big difference there, right?
Sure. But also, I mean, in the same respect, if I was to take a look at trying to investigate where the problem came in, I have a feeling what happened is that the person pulled the update down, and I know who it is. And the point of bringing it up wasn't so much like I brought it up. I said, okay, you know, I'm going to hold off on that point. I'm going to get back to that because that was a natural thing we went into yesterday. But the point of it was that I think what happened is the person pulled the thing down and they had already made changes before they pulled their update. And when they went to go commit, what they did, they said is they were prompted saying, "Do you want to reload this file?" And they said, "No, I'm good," and hit save, right? And they didn't get the update. They got the revision and then they overwritten it again with their changes, which was the pieces that were missing,
Yeah.
and then committed it across. And so sometimes if you get an individual who is not going to take the diligence at points, or maybe the tools didn't tell him that, and that's what happened. It came up in a meeting, and I said, someone mentioned, I said, "Oh, the unit test case on this thing failed." And I go, "Yep, I know why." And they go, "Why?" I said, "Well, someone overwrote code and dropped off a bunch of files a day later." And then they were all looking at me saying, "Well, who was it? Was it me?" You're all like grilling me. And I said, "No, the point is, you guys just need to take your updates first and check and see that your changes are not going to go over on top of something. You got to check first."
Yeah.
I said, but they say, "Well, our solution normally does that." I said, "Yes, but don't trust it. Check before you make any changes. When you're intermixing with a large amount of code with other people's code, you just gotta be diligent." And that was the center focus of my like, "Hey guys, please do this first. Be careful. Don't just willy-nilly put stuff in and toss it in because it dropped some off and then that failed some tests."
Yeah.
And and thankfully that was caught. And it was a minor thing, but that wasn't the point. The point is that the individual who did it made a mistake, and or wasn't careful. And
So, do you do team code reviews? So when something new gets put up for a pull request, do you do
um,
a review of the
it's
code?
usually me who
Oh,
does the
okay.
review. I'm the one, and again, I don't trust anybody. And I say that, and let me say that in such a way, I don't even trust my own code. I check
Hmm.
my changes before I commit them. I check, what did I just commit? Got it. That's exactly it. I need to know as being part of the lead in the team, not only do I need to know what we're deploying, but I need to know why. And I
Yeah.
need to know what the impact is. And if somebody puts something in, even though if I was not included in the conversation pieces about it getting built or written, at the very least, it's good to know um, what happened. So when I get that call or somebody gets that call in the middle of the night, I know, obviously I can roll back the previous version, but sometimes our code is dependent on stored procedures or packages or things that are in parts of backend that requires manual intervention, not just, rolling back a little piece of
Yeah.
code, right? So sometimes the architecture design of the whole solution can get really thick, and it's good to have some awareness of it. And even though it takes an extra few percentage of my week, whenever we do these deployments, I want to know what's going on. Or
Yeah.
more importantly, if there's a part of the team where I can give some guidance, to keep like naming conventions or code structures a little bit more clean and readable, I'll give that advice after the fact, or during, or I might just fix it and then put it in and then give the teachable moment to the individuals.
A couple of
Uh,
questions.
yeah.
When you um, wouldn't it be better if you did the code reviews with your team, right? So when something gets released, you make sure that you have you adhere to a specific coding standard. You say these are the rules, and then instead of just you doing the review, everybody in the team does a
Mhm.
review. That gives you coverage in case you get hit by a bus, because that's important.
Yeah. Bus
Um,
factor.
yeah, and it also gives people the ability to learn from each other's mistakes. And if they understand that everybody's else's code is getting gone through that review, not just by you, but also by other people, they will also not go for that. Hey, who was it? Who was it? Because everybody will know, and next time that they are the guy that did that, right? They teach each other to code better, right?
Yeah, I agree with you, and there's not always an opportunity inside the company when the moments do occur. There are two developers that sit near each other, and I will stop by and then I will say, "Hey guys," and then usually I do sort of a moment like that, but that's not all of the team. There are some people in the team that are remote. They're in other locations in
Yeah,
other
yeah, but if you
states.
have, I
Yeah.
think that Team City does support this, right? So you can do code reviews with that, right?
Well, yeah, you can also just do it with bringing up, like showing them how to utilize the tools and check for changes, modifications, and stuff with SVN or Git, right? You can do those things. Those tools have those things in place, and they're very
There's another tool by JetBrains called Upsource.
right. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of tools to do it. Now, with that, they've all been taught. They all have a pretty good firm understanding of how to check for changes and look for them. And usually the mistake that happens is they end up screwing themselves up, right? Because they're the only one working on the file, and they're the only ones doing that coding work for that app or that module, and they screw themselves up and they go through that review a lot. Now, are there developers? And I can't speak for everyone in the company. I can tell you historically, there are obviously been developers throughout my career where it's clear they're just kind of what I call like insanity coding, right? Or they throw spaghetti up on the wall until it looks like something. They throw paint at the wall until it looks like a duck, and then they convince everybody, see, that's a duck, and everyone says, I guess I can see it as a duck, and then they release that to production. So there are people that do things don't know their troubleshooting well, don't do the troubleshooting well because they think they don't have the time for it.
Hmm.
But they have plenty of time to support the problems or react to their mistakes or any mistakes or other people's mistakes on the team. But instead, they don't take the percentage of time that they could take to prevent ever having that problem,
But
right?
if you were to implement something where your entire team, or just a couple of them, right, at a
Yep.
time, so randomly selected, air quotes.
Yep.
Um, uh, let's say Alan worked on a piece of code, and Bob and Jim have to go and review their code, or
Yep.
insert other name, right? So with that, you are spreading the responsibility. So you're saying, hey, you looked at the code as well. You didn't see it either. If something goes wrong, we all three of us looked at it. We are responsible for that piece of code.
Yep.
So it spreads the responsibility. It spreads the risk of making a mistake because other people will see what you didn't, and you are reviewing your own code. So there is no check against that, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a very good thing. I think you'll find though, and if this is unique, I mean, is this something you're actively doing as like an active scrum of code review with everybody on a daily basis or a
E-
weekly basis?
Everything we do gets reviewed before it gets put live.
Right, yeah.
There's some minor there's some hot fixes we have to do sometimes, and they don't get reviewed, but they get reviewed after the fact. But that's because there's an emergency and we need to go fix it, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I
And
definitely
even
believe
those are very far between.
right.
There's not a lot of that happening.
In this team, I will tell you though, even though it's only about a year and some change old, these kind of problems have not really occurred with cross-cutting, meaning usually one developer has the owner of it. I have some awareness of it, so when my boss comes in and says, "Oh, so and so released and now they're on vacation," I fix it because I look at the code. I think one of the things that's really important, and thankfully there's been opportunities over my career where people have said, "Hey, can you help this person be better, uh,
Mm.
be a better code?" Like the company's investing, taking somebody that's like a higher rate, like me, the lead, and asking them to invest into someone who is at a lower rate, like a junior developer, and asking them to shore up and teach them and give them some things that clearly college and school or their limited experience hasn't taught them yet. And I'm glad that some companies invest that way. It's good to invest in people, not just in as I've said before, sort of the product and loss risk, right? And so I think there's some value in that. And certainly that my teaching approach is, yes, I will teach you the specifics, but I'm not going to teach you to memorize things. I'm going to teach you to be resourceful, and I'm going to teach you how to troubleshoot, and I'm going to teach you how to think about how to resolve the problem. I will teach that first before I teach you the specifics, because there's a difference from knowing the answer and taking the journey. And so I've definitely, even where I worked here, I've been teaching more of the thinking. And they go, well, I'm having this problem. I don't know. Okay, well, what do you know what's going on, in the browser? Well, I mean, I did this, right? And it should do this, right? But do you know what it looks like in the browser? Okay, let me show you the web browser tools, right? Let me show you how to debug that.
But
oh, by the way, you need to look at some networking things. Have you heard of Fiddler? Have you heard of Wireshark? And there's lots of tools. And for me, having a different kind of background, a more comprehensive background, when I was in network engineering, I know what ports and protocols look like, and I know what the protocol looks like inside. And when I look in Wireshark, I'm not confused.
Yeah, but that's great and all, but when you are the one on vacation, right, then that's when the problem starts. Right? So you can't go on a vacation. You can go on a day off, but you can't really go on a vacation, right?
I can, but there's also...
but then stuff won't be released because...
This is also part of like the rapid nature of your deployment approach, right? Are you deploying in minutes, being reactive to everything, or are you being proactive and, doing your checks and balances? And I think that's the key thing right there. That's the part that, needs to occur more often than it does. And so that, yes, I have my boss who's a fairly capable programmer. He can look at stuff and go, oh, yeah, okay, got it, and find a way around it. And so he is my backup if it's needed. However, as we do more advanced programming things, not everyone's going to be able to follow along so quickly. And if you're an experienced programmer, even if you don't know the new way, you might have a way around it. If you have a lot of experience, of course you have a way around it. And I think that is more of what's going on when those scenarios come up. But they're so few and far between. Also, what you normally do is, well, this is what's going on. Alan's away for a week. Let's not release anything major, right? Only hot fixes, right? Our boss is away for a week. Let's not release anything major. Only hot fixes, right?
Then you're holding up the entire company, right? With new stuff. Or stuff that needs to be fixed. Even hot fixes might not be released because you're not there in case something goes wrong. I understand that because I have that same bus factor, right? I totally understand. But you got to take care of that, right?
Absolutely.
If you're the only one reviewing code, other people should learn that because they can learn from other people's code, and together you can create something that is supported by the entire team instead of just you. Because now you are a support.
You are preaching to the choir. I agree with you. I think, though, as I mentioned, just to reinforce, I don't know that every company allots for that or has that. We're a small team. We do a lot of stuff very quickly, very rapidly with very few mistakes. And literally, no, I mean, the kinds of things I get thrown on me a tremendous amount is the beginning of the week. Everyone comes up with this great idea, and at the end of that week, it's released into production with a lot of thorough testing involved. And that's what happens. But those things get put on me. They don't get put on to people with less experience or coding capability in the group. It's just because it has a lot to do with experience, right?
Yeah, but if
And
the
that
entire team is supporting it, right, then the junior can do their thing and learn and become more than junior.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, and I don't think there's ever going to be any argument for me about that conversation piece because um, I like I said, I want the developers to know what they're looking at and then also again to the point know how to resolve things. Even if so and so comes back from vacation and gets all mad and goes, "What'd you guys do?" Right? And I mean, guys, as the proverbial group of people, not necessarily gender specific. And yeah, I agree with you. I think a team needs to be um, fault tolerant,
Yeah,
right? Otherwise, what's the point of a team? It's a group of people with one specific set of hierarchy, right? And so not every company designs teams that way. Not every company wants to design that way, right? And that's the biggest problem, I think.
yeah. Well, if you run into the trouble well, we strayed a little bit from deployment, but
We did again, but this
again,
was a different topic for us.
so but if you run into an issue where your best developer or your gateway, right, the gatekeeper of the source code
Yeah.
gets hit by a bus, that might be an issue, and you having trouble getting your company to start distributing that load, right? It's not just actual physical buses, but also them having to need a timeout from work because they're overworked.
Hmm.
Talk to your figure out what the bus factor is, and you can Google that. It's a lot. There's a lot of information about that, and make sure you talk to your management about that, and let them understand that your team needs to cover this entire thing, not just one person,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because as soon as it will go wrong at some point, and you will lose money over that.
I would definitely argue the point that I think talent has a lot to do with it, right? You want to hire people that are capable of supporting multiple things that are outside of the points of interest or conversation about what they do professionally, right? My background is, I have network engineering background. I have system administration background. So when I talk to other components or divisions or groups of the company, I'm more speaking more natively to their concerns than and acting as a liaison. And so I come in doing development for this company because I like that more than doing architecture because I did that for 15 years. But I don't stop ever being the network engineer or the systems guy who's thinking about when I make my design what that code optimization should look like and feel like
Hmm.
and be like. Um, so I think all those things do, and that to me is hiring. That is more about, I don't know, in my mind, that's more about hiring for talent than it is about hiring for people with skills.
What I think is important is that the entire team knows about things, and so in case somebody falls out or somebody breaks a leg or a finger or whatever, that
Right. Yeah.
other people can pick up the slack in case
Right.
of emergencies. And right, people might not like that they're being called in on Saturday because such and such exploded and something happened, but at least there is something to fall back on. Somebody
Mhm.
knows, right? And if you're just hiring the people only the best, you're not going to get the best ever,
Oh, I agree.
right?
Yeah.
Because you can hire as many diva developers as they won't talk to each other, right?
That's true. That
And
is true.
they might be the best in every field, or they might know so many things, but they might not work together. And I think that if you they will want to be that gatekeeper, and I think you need less of that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you need a balance, and it's we in the company had started to have these conversations internally, and they recently had like a summit where they were talking about bringing up coding topics, but they polled what's interesting to people, and they said, well, we want to know about this and we want to know about that, and so one of the kind of equivalents, like someone who has a lot of experience and skilled, one of the other leads in the company, went ahead and, along with his division and group, created a summit and talked about F Sharp and how to utilize this and what the values are, right? And he spoke to all the areas of business to a group of developers, not a group of leadership, right? And what I've been doing in our group, our division, is I've been spreading out every Friday. I give them a bunch of resources and topics and then put some commentary on certain things and iterating it forward. A lot of people think they know CSS well. They really don't. I don't really know CSS well. But I have a fair amount of experience and I utilize it in my day to day. And so there's value in reinforcing and spreading some understanding across the board. I'm uniquely doing it to my division, and with a couple other people that heard through the grapevine and have asked to be added to the email chain. Is email the greatest place for it? No. Is in-person interaction and a weekly thing inside your company where you all kind of communalize? Yes, I think that's a better place, and I think that's a direction that's probably going to happen more likely in the future than it does today. So, if you work in a large organization, these are good things, because you're right. There are other people in the company or in the business that are solving problems that you probably want to know about. Like, how'd they do that? What were the challenges? How'd they solve that? So that you all can learn together and be better at it. So,
yeah. Okay. So
we should probably end there.
Yeah, we strayed too far away from releasing code.
Well, I mean, I think it's not just about, maybe it's not just deployment, right, is the topic, but it's the growing pains of deploying code. Maybe that's a better title, or maybe that's a better subject matter. I don't know.
Letting go of your code, releasing the code.
I mean, you do, right? If you're being asked to become a manager, at some point you're going to have to stop writing code. And whether you're a diva or you have some ego about like your style of code or how good you are, or, right, you're trying to control or iterate a problem, or you're better at handling, right? You gotta, for everybody to grow, you need to go upwards. And to go upwards, you got to stop doing other things, right? And the best thing you can do is help people that need it to get better and be better than you. Right? So my point of view is anyone who I'm asked to help shore up some understanding, is there'll probably be some point where I'll stare at them and say, hey, I want you to be better than me, and everyone else is as good as we are in the leads in the company, because you need to take the lead at some point, right? Like, you need, where you are now and where you need to be in a couple of years, you need to be better than us. And if you're not, then you got to work harder at it, right? I mean, that's it. They're not going to be able to, they're never going to be able to compare to like 20 years of knowledge and experience, but they can be much better than they were a month ago, right? If they try hard enough. So.
Okay, I think that covers it for now.
Yeah.
Let's cut it out for now.
Really stop. Shut up.
Stop. Okay. Okay, so we got a couple of other things. We have the book corner. We should get jingles. We should really get jingles. That would be nice. So there is a book called Paradox Bound. It was released recently, last week, I think, on Monday. Paradox Bound by Peter Clines. It's on Audible, Polymatic.media/AZ. I have not been able to find a hardcover or paperback for that book. That was very hard. I looked, wasn't able to find it. The story is about a guy named Eli who lives in a very sleepy town, and over the years, from his early childhood until his close to 30s, he has run-ins with a person called Harry. Now, near his 30th birthday, he falls face first into an adventure that spans the history of the United States and the search for the American dream, which is an actual physical object, apparently. The ideas in the book are kind of ludicrous, but like his other books, you need to just go with it. That's probably the best advice for that. It's been described as Adjustment Bureau meets Back to the Future meets National Treasure, if that makes any sense. There's some scary guys with no faces. There's some time travel, history travel. Yeah. And lots of references to famous old people, dead people, mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good book. Very enjoyable. Money and time well spent. Yeah.
Cool. Link for that?
Polymatic.link/AZ.
Okay, cool. And that's an audio book format, right?
Yeah, that's an Audible, yeah.
Cool. All right, so we got some fun stuff.
Yes.
We had fun stuff yesterday, but we still have it.
Okay, so first one, 30-day time lapse at sea. Polymatic.link/AY. A guy strapped a GoPro or something else camera to, I think it was 4K, right? Anyway, he strapped it to the front of his boat, and then a boat container ship.
Shipping container ship.
Yeah,
basically. Yeah.
And he spent 30 days on the ocean, going from port to port. It's very pretty.
It's very pretty. It's very interesting. If you check out this guy's website, you get a sense of like what it is to be working in sort of a nautical industry. And then very specific kind of nautical industry, right? Because you never would think too much about I mean, everyone's complaint is that your thing that you ordered off of Amazon that came out of China took 3 weeks, but you don't really care how it traveled other than the fact that it's not at your door, the second that you ordered it. But this is a way it gets there. And even though whatever it is that you ordered doesn't get this perspective or point of view, but it does go through this travel path typically. And I don't know, if you check out this guy's site, there's some interesting stuff about like living on a ship and being a part of this industry and what it takes to be, a part of this industry. Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. So I generally recommend you check out some other videos by this guy.
So Polymatic.link/AY for that.
Yes, indeed. So I have one called Meet Arnold. Now here in the U.S. it was trending for a moment and I ignored it. And then I came back to it. I saw another video. Meet Arnold, Polymatic.link/B1. I think it's educational and comedic at the same time, if that makes any sense. Poor Arnold. The narrator is not very nice to Arnold. And doesn't think very much of Arnold, but it's kind of funny, and they're fairly short.
Polymatic.link/B1 for that.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so yesterday I had a neighbor day, neighbor drinks thing, and I made some food, including this, Polymatic.link/B8. There's a guy works for a Chinese restaurant, and he's kind of spilling the beans on all the recipes. So go check that out. He has some pretty tasty stuff on there.
Polymatic.link/B8.
We keep sharing food stuff.
You or me?
Both of us.
Yeah, I guess so. But, sure. But I'm also sharing like absurd things as we go down the line. Actually, they did something even more absurd, but we'll get to that. So that was Polymatic.link/B8. Chicken on a stick. Okay, so this is somebody that I followed, I don't know, maybe a month ago. I don't know exactly how I discovered. Might be through the algorithm, might be through something trending. I don't think it was trending. But I came across this person who's just sort of doing a vlog, and she is a young programmer. She works at Patreon, and she's sharing a perspective of that kind of lifestyle and living. And so this is Polymatic.link/B2. This was sort of a Q&A that she did with a friend. I think there was a lot of good stuff in there. I'm generally following her as a person. I even follow her on, I guess, Instagram. And yeah, so I don't know. If you're curious about programming, given our topic this week, if you're interested at all, Polymatic.link/B2. I think she's a good starting point, especially if you're starting out and you want some insight or perspective from somebody else who's also doing it.
Yeah.
And that's Meet Mayuko. Yuko. Mayuko. I always say it wrong.
So have you heard of, speaking of developers, have you heard of Barnacules Nerdgasm?
I hadn't until I watched it last night.
So he's a bit of a nerd.
Yeah.
And he was taking on some Microsoft tech support, certified tech support scammers.
Yeah.
He used to work at Microsoft, so he is actually, taking them on, making fun of them. It's actually pretty funny. Polymatic link/B9. I always like when these guys get taken on.
Another one for those who aren't really technical but want to get a sense of what happens and maybe even be careful about this. Go find the Reply All two-parter where they talk about this.
Yeah, it was long distance, right?
I think it might have been long distance. You might be correct about that. And they, not only do they have one person of the two of them, of the two hosts that's fairly tech savvy, they took it way down the rabbit hole and even went to India to confront them.
Yeah.
Or get to know them, right? They spent months on this, and it was a very intriguing perspective. I will say, though, and certainly this has happened to my mother, where somebody was calling from the the Windows mainframe company, right? And my mother translated that in her head as a Microsoft, like Barnacle is doing in this thing, calling and, saying they are certified partner, whatever that might actually mean. And, so I had to solve that problem for her. But, this will happen. Scammers look at people in America that hit a certain retirement age range, and then they start going after them. Yeah. And I had somebody with me recently who was looking at it, it's like, Ellen, this thing, have you heard about this thing? Amazon says, and I looked at the thing, I said, this address is not Amazon. It's in the Amazon colors. They use the word Amazon, and this is not Amazon at all. It says an Amazon customer survey, which means you bought a product from that company who's the one who shipped it to you, and then they are now scamming you, saying that they're doing an Amazon customer survey, which is the only legitimate thing, who has nothing to do with anything related to Amazon, and they're spamming you right now. No, don't buy that thing. That has nothing to do with Amazon. Amazon's not recommending anything to you. You got to be careful what you're looking at. That was
so for the video of Barnacles, go to Polymatic link/B9. For the Reply All podcast about that the scammer thing from India, Polymatic links/BH.
Got you. Cool. And that's a two-parter. So obviously they're basically one after the other in succession. Really good show. In general, I would recommend you watch it. So we're talking about food stuff earlier. So here's another kind of food-like thing. I think I've shared this channel in general. Edible Geode, Polymatic.link/B3. So this group makes this channel. They're a couple. I don't even know if they're married, but they are a couple, and they make absurd stuff. In fact, I watched a video last night where they made a burger in a hot dog and a burrito and a pretzel roll or something crazy like that. And typically what happens is Julia is more of the cook. She'll make everything, right? She'll make the bread, she'll make the icing, she'll make the cake. She does everything. She doesn't go as far as like growing the flour, right? The wheat to make flour, but she'll make everything. And JP usually takes the shortcut, like buying a bunch of crap off the shelf and coming up with whatever. This happens to not be one of those things. This happens to be something interesting. You watch this, what'd you think?
Yeah, it looked pretty.
I don't think I would eat it.
No. Well, it's sugar, so there's not much you can mess up with that.
Yeah. So Polymatic.link/B3, and there you go. In general recommendation, if you like the absurdity of what they do, check out some of their other videos, and also, maybe follow them.
Okay. So next one is some music. Vienna Tang is an artist, audio artist. She has some music out there, and she was doing an internship at a company, and she had access to this database from Axiom, which is used for like credit checks and stuff, if I'm correct. And somebody came to her and told her about that database and was like, "It's so creepy, but so cool." And then she made a song about that, about the database knowing everything, that it's a good thing because somebody knows you exist or something like that.
I think actually makes they cobble together data and repurpose it for marketing stuff. So if you had access to that database, you could look yourself up and see what marketers think they know about you or have said about you, and collected about you. And so that's where it's like it's creepy that they have info.
But also cool because you have that data.
Yeah.
So
But
the hymn of Axiom it's
if
called.
you look on Spokio, you can find some of the same information. Spokio.com or .org or something like that. You can see what all these open database systems know about you. It's kind of creepy. It's also kind of creepy how they get it wrong, which explains the kind of spam you get in your inbox. So
anyway, Polymatic.media for that.
Yes, the what do we call that? The Imogen Heap button.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a short documentary. You can find it on YouTube, but I think I pointed to its origin, which is on Vimeo.
Yep.
It's a short documentary with Jim Carrey and his artistry. Maybe part of why he's not in movies so much anymore. It's called I Need Color, Polymatic.link/B5. I thought it was really interesting. I wish I saw more of it. I wish there was more of it. Maybe there is. But he... I don't know. I guess he's needed an extra outlet for this kind of stuff, and I think I really like the documentary. I wish there was more. I've said that. Yeah.
Okay. There is a video about a guy with an electric hamster ball. He made a remote control hamster ball. Polymatic.link/BB. And when I looked at the link just now, I thought, oh, it would have been nice if we had BB-8 for that. It kind of is the same thing, right?
Oh, well, in time. You can always relink it.
Yeah.
Years later.
Yep.
Okay, so that was BB. So the last one, I'm calling this awkward. Polymatic.link/B6. Yeah. How do I explain it? The sense of humor is dry and subtle. And it's got puppets in it. And it's more adult than it is for kids. It's not for kids. So,
definitely not.
But I thought it was funny. I followed the Awkward Puppets group from, I think, when they were on Vine. And so I just kind of checked in with them recently, and I got a laugh out of it. So, yeah, there you go.
The next one's also for you.
Oh, there's another one?
No. Music Corner.
Oh, Music Corner. Right. Okay, so Music Corner. So I had added something into a playlist recently in my little music bubble while I was at work. And I came across this old, unique album. And I say old, meaning it is no more than it's at least 5 years old, if not 10 years old. If you know something about William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy, back in the height of their celebrity when they were on TV back, I guess, 60s or 70s, they made these really terrible albums. And I think even did a little concert tour where it was like an evening with Leonard Nimoy, an evening with William Shatner, where they basically got up on stage and had a band or sung, I say sing like with air quotes, covers, where they more or less didn't sing so much as talk poetically in a singing manner over it. And this was sort of this odd, weird thing that is uniquely interesting on its own. And so Has Been is a more recent iteration of this, still being old. Polymatic.link/BO. John couldn't see it. It was only
available, by the way.
B0, that's right. Only available in the US because that's where I linked it to. But if you just look for William Shatner and the album Has Been, you can find this album in all the places. And this song is called I Can't Get Behind That. And it really does still speak, even though it's got some age on it, still speaks very well to sort of people that are getting older and can deal with new things, right? Most people can't write an emoji and never write a piece of text, I probably being one of those people. I use them in limited fashion. I don't use them as I don't pictogram emoji a conversation with John here. I never do that. It's never gonna happen because one, it takes too long to find the emojis. It really does.
Hieroglyphics are making a comeback.
Yes, they are. They're called emojis. Anyhow, so I don't know. I thought it was funny. It is odd. The album came about because Ben Folds from Ben Folds 5, music producer. I think he's an Emmy Award winner. Went ahead and did an album with William Shatner. And I don't know. It's kind of good. I like it. It's weird. You got to accept the weirdness that is William Shatner's sort of oddities. If you can embrace that, then I'm sure you probably already have a copy of that album.
Okay, and to complement this, I added a link to a song called Bilbo Baggins by Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
Polymatic.media.
B-E. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And with that, I think we're at the end. So, Alan, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter if you like. CHAESS. That's my last name.
Okay, you can find me on Twitter as well on WebDevy, WEBDEVVIE. For feedback, you can reach us at podcast@Polymatic.media. Our Twitter is @ThePolymatic. Our website is Polymatic.media. And I hope you tune in next time, and hopefully with less technical difficulties. Bye.
The music in this episode was by Say Uns. It was licensed under Creative Commons Attribution and found on the Free Music Archive. You can find these tracks at shorter.com/BRK.